عليما إنك. So we were on to the bare minimum of wudu. What is the bare minimum of wudu? So the question is, why would I want to know the bare minimum anyway? Shouldn't I know the sunnah? Why are you telling me the bare minimum? So what is the benefit of knowing the bare minimum?
If you have limited access to water, I mean, not tayammum, but like if you need to at least accomplish the bare minimum to
Okay.
fulfill the obligation of then doing the salah.
Okay. So for fear that you might prioritize something that is not a priority. That's a useful thing, right? Okay. So that's in terms of water. What about time?
Yeah, you might not have enough time
Right.
to pray within the acceptable time.
So again, you will prioritize the obligatory and not do the sunnah because it would actually be haram to do the sunnah, right? Because if doing the sunnah would mean that you don't pray on time, then it's now haram, right? So the point of knowing the basic is not so that you do the basics. That is not deen. That's not how the Prophet ﷺ taught us, nor how the Sahaba applied the deen. But it is important. So it helps you prioritize and also technicalities, right? Is it useful to guide other people and to know the actual lines between valid and invalid? Yes, it is, right? So we draw these lines, it helps us, it's important, okay? Because if we don't know them, then it's just okay. That's fine. We have that soul that wants to follow the sunnah. That's great, but actually, technically, what is the deen? Right? You do actually do need to technicalities that are important at some point. Okay, great. So the first then is intention. When we start the face, why do we need intention? Number one, and number two, why do you not have the intention throughout the whole action?
If because that's the order that is mentioned in Quran.
Okay, that's the order mentioned in the Quran, but I'm asking the question, why do you have to have intention, A, and B, why do you have to have intention only at the beginning of washing the face?
I mean,
Because
the
everything
first part
before
is
the face is sunnah.
Like, if I didn't intend to make wudu, can I make wudu without intending to make wudu?
no. No.
No. Well, why? How do you know that?
I feel like you've stressed this point a lot, Sheikh, over the last few years, which is we don't have the niyyah, then the act itself. It's not that the act is invalid, it's just not accepted.
Okay, so you had no intention for the sake of Allah. You drove all the way from here, all the way to Buffalo, and drove back. You spent all this money, and you don't get ajr for it. Is that correct? With no intention for the sake of Allah?
I think that's what I've learned from you.
Okay, so I don't want ajr. I just want to have a valid wudu. So we're saying of the basics, and we're not talking about some spiritual experience where you're baptizing yourself and you feel, close to Allah. I'm just talking about the basics of wudu. Why are we saying that that intention is a part of the basics of wudu? So ChatGPT, Siri, open ChatGPT. Yes.
Um, because intention is part of the validity of wudu.
Okay, why is that the case? So there's two reasons. Two reasons. Number one, the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ
بالنيات.
بِالنِّيَّاتِ جَزَاكُمُ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا, right? So, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Actions are only by intentions. Okay? So, they only count through intentions. They only exist through intentions. So you have not done an action unless you have an intention, right? So therefore, it doesn't count. So we say, إِنَّمَا الْوُضُوءُ بِالنِّيَّةِ. Wudu only exists through its intention. If you didn't have an intention, there would be no wudu. It simply doesn't count. Okay. Now, also, to supporting that idea, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, وَإِذَا قُمْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ. When you get up to pray, you were asleep, therefore sleep breaks your wudu, and you got up to pray, intending to pray, right? So what were you doing? You were going to pray. So therefore, that's implied in there. Now, the Hanafis, they say no, you are wrong. You cannot add the niyyah as one of the basic fundamental things of wudu, right? Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it very clearly in the Quran. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق وامسحوا برؤوسكم وأرجلكم إلى الكعبين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that washing the face. Allah says, "Oh, you who believe, when you get up to pray, wash your face." So it says washing your face. And your arms up to your elbows. الكعبين وأرجلكم إلى الكعبين وامسحوا برؤوسكم. Wipe your heads and wash your feet. That's what it says. So unless you want to add something to the Quran, then you can't. That's wrong. So we come along and say, yes, we want to add something to the Quran. Did not the Prophet ﷺ teach us the Quran and the hikmah? Right? He taught the hikmah, he taught the Prophet ﷺ is the explainer of the Quran, right? So the Prophet ﷺ told us, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. So therefore, niyyah is included. Okay? And they come along and tell us what? They come along, the Hanafis, they say, well, hang on a minute, guys. الزيادة على الكتاب نسخ. Adding anything to the Holy Scripture of the Quran is equivalent to abrogating the Quran. So what you've effectively done is you have abrogated this verse. You've said the verse doesn't mean what it means, which says wash your face, wash your arms, wipe your head, wash your feet. It actually means something else. So that's what you've said, right? And in order to do that, you better have a strong proof. We want to have something that's as authentic and clear as the Quran. Do you, O Shafis, have that? You say, of course, you have a hadith, the Sahih, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, actions by intentions. So they say, really? Is it as Sahih? Is it as well known and as established as the verse of the Quran? And we say, no, it is not. They say, please tell us how well known this is. Say, well, I mean, if you ask the Sahaba, we know that perhaps at least one Sahabi knew about this hadith. Okay. Do you have any evidence that any other Sahaba knew about it? No. Okay, of the Tabi'een, who knew about it? One. Okay, and who did he narrate it to? One. And who narrated it to? One. And then it became widespread. So we have to understand that this hadith is well known to me and you. But at one time in history, it was not well known. It was not well known among the Sahaba, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, actions by its intentions. It wasn't something that's repeated day in and day out like the Quran. Right? It is something that is narrated by, if you remember the chain of transmission, it goes from Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari, from him to Muhammad ibn Ibrahim at-Taymi, and from so he and he narrates it from if I remember correctly, from Sayyidina Umar. That's what I recall. But if you can imagine, this is the picture. Okay, this is the picture. It is not well known among the Sahaba, nor is it well known among the Tabi'een, the students of the Sahaba. It is something that people heard from a particular qadi, an important qadi, important judge from Medina, right? So that's almost like a secret, isn't it? It's almost like something that only a few people knew. So the Hanafis, they come along to us and say, guys, are you seriously going to change the whole system of the religion for a hadith that is not well known? And we say, yes, because it's sahih. And they're going to say, we're not going to do that. So they're going to say, you have no reward for your wudu. Of course, we know that. If you don't have a niyyah, there's no reward. But I'm not going to come along and change the legal structure of the deen, which is there, spelt out in the Quran very clearly, and mentioned very clearly, repeated again and again and again to us, month after month. The Sahaba heard all of this. Generation after generation, everybody heard it. This is the rule. Wash your face. This is. And then come along and add something to it. I'm not going to do that. So we're going to accept the hadith, that it's not weak, but we're not going to let it change the fundamentals of wudu. Does that make sense? System?
Yep.
Yes.
Everyone's following? Right? And so we have to understand a sahih hadith is authentic, but not as authentic as something else. Right? So that's the issue there. So they say, no, you don't need intention. We say, yes, you do need intention. Right? Make sense? Now we have to wash the face. Okay, so first of all, it has to wash and not wipe. So you cannot use, for example, a damp towel or something like that. You have to wash it. Some trickles of water have to be going over your face, right? And number two, it has to be the face. Oh, we missed out something. So, innamal a'malu binniyat. Actions are only by intentions, correct? So, is wudu just washing the face?
No.
No. So, why on earth do we not need to have your niyyah throughout the whole action?
Is it because that the implication of washing from the face on with the arms includes the hands, which the sunnah is to wash the hands first, but the minimal obligation of the Quran is that the hands are part of the arms. So that's why we start with the face.
I know you start with the face. The question is, why don't you have to keep having the niyyah continually throughout the whole of wudu? Why is it only obligatory at the beginning of wudu?
But isn't, I mean, I'm guessing here, Sheikh, that isn't it because that would be like renewing the intention. I think I've asked you this before, like during Ramadan, you don't have to make intention every night during Ramadan that you're going to fast the next day because the implication is you made it at the beginning of the month. Is the same logic not here?
That's for the Malikis. That's slightly different. But let's say for us, we say you have to intend for each day. Okay. Do you have to intend for each split second of Ramadan?
No.
Right? Would that be slightly difficult, do you think, to like continually remember? And as soon if you fell asleep, you would break your fast.
Yeah, that would be
That would be
extremely
like, would that be
difficult.
cripplingly difficult?
Yes.
Okay. Is it cripplingly difficult to keep your niyyah throughout the whole of wudu?
No.
Is it hard?
I think it's hard if it's
Yeah. So if we ask the whole ummah, right, including my 7-year-old son and your 7-year-old son and this person over here, if you ask the whole ummah, say, guys, can you pray 5 times a day? That's not impossible. It is hard, but it's not that impossible, right? Can you focus for the whole of wudu on your niyyah? That's quite difficult. So we say the niyyah is established by the hadith, even if it's not in the Quran. But we say the Quran and the Hadith have spelt out on multiple occasions al-mashaqqatu tajlibu at-taysir, that difficulty will bring ease. We don't mean duress, we don't mean death in this situation, but we mean normal widespread difficulty. If you asked every single person to stay with absolute presence of heart, I am making wudu the whole time, then it'll be very difficult. Okay? So it is mashaqqa because of difficulty. We're going to see this again and again and again. Widespread recurrent difficulty changes things. So no, you don't have to do that. So now we're going to say, okay, well, then you have to have intention at some point. Yeah, okay, at the beginning. There we go. So if it's not in all of it, then it has to be some of it. And if it's not, if it's going to be some of it, then it's going to be at the beginning. There we go. So we just cut it down to some point, which is the beginning. Okay, which is the
Sheikh,
thing.
can I ask a question?
Bismillah, go ahead, Sham.
So the question is that if you are making wudu and in the act of making wudu, perhaps because you are fasting or something else, you get distracted and you forget for even a nanosecond that you're in the process of making wudu, you forget where you are, like you're praying and you forget where you are. Does that necessitate a re-intention?
No, it does not. It does not. However, being involved in something else does. So let's say, for example, you started to wash your face with the intention, I know I'm making wudu. Started washing your face, the phone rings. Go downstairs. Answer the phone. Come back 5 minutes later. So now you went and did something else, you need to return on your niyyah. Right? But otherwise it's just assumed to be still there. Now here's a question. Do you get the reward though? So you started washing your face, then you started thinking about faces. And faces, what do faces look like? And does everybody's face look the same? And if they don't look the same, why is that the case? And try and think about which part of the DNA in the body defines how you look. And by the time you finish your daydreaming, you've already washed your feet. Do you get the reward for washing your arms and wiping your head and washing your feet if you're daydreaming the whole time?
No.
No. So, so again, if we think about how, so there are certain discussions in fiqh that are only a product of how messed up we are. So the Sahaba were baptizing themselves 5 times a day. They were washing off hellfire. So you ask them, do you have to intend? They're like, what are you talking about? Like, what does that even mean? It's like asking a question, say, Fareed, when you hug your children, do you do it out of love or out of habit? Like that's a bit sad question, isn't it? It's a bit of a sad question, isn't it? It's like, oh, like I just hear and they're there. It's like, oh, I guess I have to hug them. It's like, oh. Like that was kind of a sad question. It's like, oh, what kind of weird family it is that there's no love in that family, right? So for the Sahaba and Tabi'in, it's not a question. Do you have to have intention to make wudu? It's like, well, how could I not have intention, right? But you get down to the sad reality of we're not all like the Sahaba and Tabi'in, and then you have to ask that question. Similarly, do you have to have the intention the whole time? Like, what do you mean? Like, why would I forget if I'm thinking about hellfire, washing off the sins from my body, and the Prophet ﷺ said it comes out under your nails and under here and under there. Like, of course, like how could I forget what I'm doing? So yeah, you could forget what you're doing. People forget what they're doing all the time.
Sheikh, I had a question.
So now go ahead.
So if a person struggles with waswasa and then like they also happen to be forgetful and then they made the intention and they started washing their face and then by the end of it they like they get easily distracted all the time and like they end up at their feet and then they don't get, I guess, like the credit or the reward for washing the other parts of their limbs, then like what if that like makes somebody like want to like redo a do it so that they get rewarded with them? Like what if that happens like all the
You
time?
can't actually do that. So you cannot repeat your wudu. And why is that
Okay.
the case? Because the Prophet ﷺ told us, he said, this is how you make wudu. And he showed us once, washing the limb once, twice, and then 3 times. And then he said, whoever does less or does more, فَقَدْ أَسَاءَ وَظَلَمَ, has done something wrong. So making wudu again out of like precaution is actually haram. You can't do that. Right?
Okay.
So because it is valid, as opposed to a prayer, right? So the majority opinion, right? The majority opinion for prayer is you don't actually have to be focused in prayer. The prayer still counts if you're not focused. Like as long as you said Allahu Akbar intending to pray, that's enough. So you had zero focus with the whole prayer. That is the majority opinion. Now, some scholars, some Malikis and some Hanbalis, they say you have to be present, have presence of heart at certain times. And some Hanbalis, they say you have to have more than 50%. So you were like, you know what? Forget this. Like, I'm sick and tired of this praying without focus. I'm going to pray with focus. So you could repeat a prayer that if you had less than 50% focus. You could say, you know what? I'm following that position. But repeating wudu, you're just now following the spirit of the law without the letter of the law, and you can't do that. Like you're just making things up as you go along, and you can't do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect
Like imagine, for
sense.
example, you go I'm actually gonna. I don't really feel like I'm really married. Like I know we're married, but I just like I'm not sure. So then you go to a judge, and the judge says, "Yeah, you're married." So then you just redo your marriage. Like why are you doing that? Like you went to the judge. The judge said you're married, and that's it. And now you want to have another contract. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like so, like so you can't just do that. You can't just do any level of carefulness you want in anything. There are certain conditions here and there. Right? It's like I was eating a chicken slaughtered by my father in front of me. He said Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and slaughtered it. And then while I was eating it, I doubted whether it was halal or not, so I threw the chicken away. Like you can't do that. Like there's no reason to doubt that it's halal, and then you just threw away food. Like why would you do that? Oh, it might not be. My dad might have left Islam in the process. Like, right? That does not have a basis. So as we learn fiqh, we will learn certain scenarios where you'll see, yeah, there is genuine argument here, and what are like scrupulousness is to do this. Like that's a good thing to do. And then there's other cases where there's no room for scrupulousness, and that's just wrong. So in that situation that you mentioned, that's not right to do that. Okay, so we said you have to have the niyyah because of the Sahih hadith. You don't have the niyyah throughout the whole wudu because that would be too difficult. This is a principle in fiqh, too difficult. It's going to come again and again. And now I'm going to wash my face, right? I'm just going to put the camera on here. So here's my face from here all the way down to here. Right? This is my chin bone here. This is the part where my hijab has to go if I'm a woman, right? Up to here. So now I'm going to go all the way up, wash all the way up my chin bone up to here. Right, this area here. And then here, I'm going to draw a line from my ear to this point here. Like this. So you see this part here where there's no hair? This does not have to be, this is not considered part of the face. Okay, so I draw a line from here to here. Get a string from the top where the ear connects here all the way to here. And then this also has to be washed here. So this is the face. All of this is the face. Okay, now, you have to do that. What if a woman has makeup on? Okay, and obviously we shouldn't be wearing makeup outside the house, but a woman has makeup on. Can you make wudu or also with makeup on? Or a man, for example, has what do you call it, American? Sunblock? We call it sun lotion.
Isn't the only exception if it's water soluble?
So we ask the question, can the water go through? Right? So if it's something that is like if it's something that's light, like for example, I put cream on my face and I rub it in, right? And there's nothing that could come off. You can see a color or you can see a shine, but you can't really see there's nothing there to scrape off. But if it's something that would scrape off, right? Like you are not washing your skin. You are washing the layers on top of your skin, right? Something that you could scrape off. You can imagine caked mud, right? If you had those mud baths, right? So like that mud is now on your face. It's got to come off, of course, before you do that. So a woman, for example, who has thick makeup on, right? That's going to be a barrier, right? That's going to be a barrier. Or you have, I don't know, something like that, right? It's going to be a barrier. So when we say washing, you mean that water is flowing over those things, right? We'll talk about the hands in a second as well. Okay, so washing the face. Now, I'm going to wash my face, and though I need to get water, I need to wash my face. Okay, the face by default is the skin of the face. Now, the hair that's on your face, like my beard, that extends from within the limits of the face and extends out, that's also considered the face. Now, so if you have a big beard, you have to wash the outside of that big beard all the way down, right? Now, here's a question. Washing inside my beard, do I need to wash inside my beard? So there's part of inside my beard which is on my chin bone, right? Do I have to wash that?
No.
Why is that the case?
Because it would be very difficult.
Very difficult. So what if I had a thin beard? Would it be difficult?
No.
No. Okay, so if I have a thick beard, I don't have to do that. Now, what about in the
Sheikh,
wudu? Go ahead.
Sheikh, isn't the question that also beard is sunnah, it's not fard? So then it's not part of the face, it's not a mandatory part of the face.
Yeah, but it is so it is you are commanded to do it. So you would imagine that Allah said do it, and then you did what He told you to do, and then it put you into a fix. That would be a bit odd, right? As opposed to He told you not to do it, right? So we say it is normal for men to have beards, and it's difficult. So a normal recurrent difficulty is overlooked, right? That's the principle. Normal recurrent difficulty. So therefore, I don't have to wash inside my beard. Now, my name is Farida, and I'm a female, and I have a beard. Do I have to wash inside under my beard? In my wudu?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you do. Why is it different?
It's not normal.
It's not
Because
normal.
it's not normal
It's
for
not
a woman
normal,
to have a
right?
period.
So let's compare two different things. You go to the bathroom, najasa goes onto you, onto your private parts. Is that normal? That's normal. Okay, so if you just use toilet paper to wipe yourself with the conditions that we'll discuss, you can go ahead and pray because that's considered normal. As opposed to you were going to the airport, you were late for your flight, and your daughter threw up all over you. And you're like, oh my God, I don't know what to, and you need to pray. Is that difficult? It's difficult. Is it normal? It's not normal. So one thing is overlooked, the other one is not overlooked. Right? One thing is overlooked, the other is not overlooked. So it's normal for a man to find it difficult to wash inside his beard. It's not normal for a woman, right? It's not normal for a woman to have a beard, so therefore it wouldn't be excused. Okay? Okay, what about in ghusl? So if it's difficult in wudu, it's difficult also. What's the difference?
Sheikh, isn't the difference that the ghusl is to remove major ritual impurity?
Okay, so you'd
So
imagine you have to
it has a
put a bit
different
more effort
standard
into
of.
it. Okay, and what else? So do I make wudu 5 times? Do I make wudu 5 times a day?
Yes.
Yes, but ghusl you only have to make once.
Right. Okay. Well, what if somebody made the ghusl 5 times a day?
That's not normal.
That's not normal, right? Or it might be normal for him. Okay, that's normal for him. Fine, it's not normal for the world though, right? So ghusl, that's not normally a difficulty. It's like, man, this is difficult. So yeah, it's difficult, but it's not normally. It's not the same. So can you see the system here? We're looking at things that normal widespread difficulty. Oh, that's not a normal widespread difficulty. I'm sorry. But it's hard. Yeah, I know it's hard. I'm sorry. That's just how it is, right? Um, okay, khair. So now washing the face, we did that. Anything else here? Uh, okay. So it says washing the arms up to and including the elbows. Where on earth does that come from? The word including. Does it say that in the Quran?
No.
No, it does not. So where do we get it from?
Is it from the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
Yes, that's true. We do see that in example of the Prophet ﷺ. And yes. But more importantly than that is we look at the word ila in Arabic. Two. So it says what was it? وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ and wipe and wash your arms, literally your arms, yeah. Hand/arms, that's the word in Arabic. So yed means from the fingertips to your shoulders. That's called yed in Arabic. Okay, and wash that area from your fingertips to your shoulders to the elbows. So is it to and including or up to but not including? But so what do you think I'm going to have to do in order to work this out? I mean, obviously I have the answer here. That's fantastic. But where does that answer even come from?
Wait, can you explain the question again?
So the question is, I want to know, is it up to and including or up to and not including? Like, how am I supposed to even work that out?
And you said yed is like from the fingertips up until your shoulders, right?
Correct.
Maybe the Sahaba.
You could look at the Sahaba, that would be a good thing, right? If you can imagine, for example, if all the Sahaba did it, the end of story, like ijma, that's easy. But unfortunately, we don't have that, right? That would make things very easy if we had ijma, right?
And so would you like go look at the Arabic understanding?
Hmm. So I'm going to look up the word ilah, right? I want to find out what does ilah mean. So I'm going to have to go and study Arabic language. So do you think Arabic language is important? Very much so, right? We spoke about dogs, remember? Last week or the week before, didn't we?
Yeah.
As we
Yeah.
said, okay, what's the difference in a dog and like what, canis and canis lupus, isn't it? Like, what's the difference? Just canis. I mean, it's same thing, right? A dog is a wolf, the same thing. I mean, there's the different breed, basically. So we said, no, one is a dog and one is a wolf. Okay, well, how did you know? Arabs called this a wolf and you call this a dog. Oh, okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Right? An onager, if you saw an onager and you saw a donkey, that looks basically the same thing to me. But one they call himar, the other called himar al-wahsh. They're two different animals. Right? So this is halal and that's haram. Say, oh, okay. Thank you. So I want to know what ilah means, Arabic. So knowing Arabic language is very important. So we go and ask the grammarians, and we find that they have three opinions. Okay, they have three opinions. One opinion is ilah includes the word that comes after it. The word to in Arabic includes the word that comes after it. Okay, based on that, you would have to wash your elbows. And based on that, you would have to fast a part of the night. Because it says in the Quran, ثُمَّ أَتِمُّ الصِّيَامَ إِلَى اللَّيْلِ, and then complete the fast up to, and therefore including, the night. So therefore you have to fast a part of the night. Like you'd have to fast, I don't know, for a moment of Maghrib or something. I don't know how it would work exactly. Right? That would mean I said I went up to him, presumably like you bumped into him. Because like if there was a gap between you, weren't really including him. So you should have like step on his toes or something like that. Right? So if you say up to, it means up to and including, then that's one understanding. Another understanding of up to is it does not include it. So therefore, you do not have to do your elbows, and that is evinced by the fact that we do not fast when the Prophet ﷺ said, when the sun sets, you've broken your fast. As soon as the sun sets, you've broken the fast. That you don't fast any part of the night. Right? I went up to the guy, you didn't step on his toes. You weren't standing in his place, you were standing in front of him. So you didn't go up to and including him, you went just up to him. Okay? So that's position number 2. Position number 3 is detailed, is nuanced, and is indicative of, it says that if the word that follows it is homogeneous, so the same thing, okay, then it includes it, and if it's not, then no. Right? So we ask the question, night and day, are they the same thing? They are not. So therefore, ثُمَّ أَتِمُّ الصِّيَامَ إِلَى اللَّيْلِ, then complete the fast until night, does not include the night. Okay, it does not include the night because ila means only includes the word that comes after it if they are the same thing, but they're not. Okay, but if they are the same thing, as the case, for example, with your arm from your fingertips all the way to your shoulders, your shoulders, that is called yad in Arabic. That's all called yad. In which case, ila includes it includes it, right? And this is the relied upon position, right? But might we be wrong?
It's possible.
It's possible, right? So that's why Zufar of the Hanafis, he said, ila does not include the word that comes after it. You don't fast part of Maghrib, and therefore you don't do this, and therefore it is not wajib. It's not a necessary part of wudu to wash your elbows. It's up to, but not including. He said that, but everybody else said including the elbows, right? And so it's very important, these games that we're playing, okay? One, we're trying to learn fiqh. The other, we're trying to understand how people work. The things don't come out of nowhere. Because a lot of people just come along and be like, Quran and Sunnah. It's like, that's true. We're all following Quran and Sunnah. But what I'm trying to show you is Quran and Sunnah through a very refined process where you have lots of principles coming out, lots of this coming out, lots of that, like this, right? It's a very different kind of thing. So anyway, wash your elbows, your hands or arms up to and including the elbows. And it's Sunnah to go as far as you can. Okay. Now, here's a question. We're going to come to that in a second. To wipe a portion of the head. So this is simple for us. It's not actually simple at all. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, uses a structure that's a bit odd in Arabic. Right? If I said in Arabic, wipe your head, I would say, imsah ra'saka. I say, wipe your head. Right? wipe your head. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't say wipe your head. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says wamsahu bi ru'usikum. He says wipe with your heads or by your heads. So what does that even word mean, be? It's a bit odd. It's not normal. Wamsahu bi ru'usikum. Wipe by your heads. So the ulama, of course, looking at this word, the ba, they look at the different meanings of the word ba, the b in Arabic, and they say, well, what does it really mean? So the default meaning is ilsaq, to stick something together. Right? You say marartu bika, I walked past you. I alsaqtu mururi bika. I made my passing stick to you. Right? You say Bismillahi, right? With the name of Allah and with the barakah of Allah and with the help of Allah, right? That's with, right? You say Bi'tu al-faras bisarjihi, right? I sold the horse with and along with the saddle. A slightly different meaning of ba, but it's a similar kind of thing. So it means with or sticking something together, right? Ma bik, right? What's your problem? What's with you? What's stuck to you? What's your problem? Right? So that's a one meaning of ba, and based on it, you stick your hand to your head and pass it over it, and you're gonna cover the whole thing. So if we say the ba is for ilsaq, which is the default, that would mean wipe the head. And the head in Arabic by default means the whole head. So the default is it means the whole head. Wipe your whole head. And this is the position of the Hanbalis and the Malikis. The Shafi'is, they come along and say, hang on a minute. Didn't the Prophet ﷺ have a turban on once and push it back and just wipe a part of his forehead? I mean, the forehead meaning the front part of his head. Didn't he just do that? They say yes. So the Shafi'is say, oh, so the default is you have to do the whole of the head, right? Yes. And then the Prophet ﷺ didn't do that. He said, no, so he just did a part. Okay. So we say the smallest part, that's what it shows us. If it's not all, then it's some, any some, the smallest part possible. Right? That's what the Shafi'is say. So the Shafi'is say, however, whatever part of the head you do, the tiniest speck of your scalp or of the hair that's within the limits of your head, that is all you need to do. Right? And that's fine. Now, the Malikis have a slightly different understanding. But here's something interesting. The Hanbalis, they agree with us. And they disagree with us. So they agree with us in that the Prophet ﷺ, yes, the Prophet ﷺ was wearing a turban. He pushed his turban back and just wiped a part of the hair / scalp. But then what did the Prophet ﷺ do? The Prophet ﷺ then wiped the rest of his turban. So they say the Prophet ﷺ did wipe the whole of his, quote, head. But his, quote, head is the scalp, the hair, or whatever is covering it, meaning the turban. So the Prophet ﷺ did wipe the whole of his head, but he showed us that head meant the scalp or the hair or whatever is covering it. So the Hanbalis, they say, yeah, if you're wearing a hijab or a turban, you can just wipe over that. Like, that's considered head. Right? So who's right and who's wrong?
Both of them
Right? That's a
are
good
right.
argument either way. So again, you say, no, I just follow Quran and Sunnah. Yeah, but the Quran and Sunnah can be understood in a different way. No, I just follow Quran and Sunnah. Yeah, but we just explained that same hadith in two different ways. And I'll add a third one as well. The Hanafis, they come along and say, yeah, the Prophet ﷺ wiped, he got his hand, okay, and he put it on his head. That is 1/4 of his head. So the Prophet ﷺ wiped 1/4 of his head. That's what he did. You have to wipe 1/4 of your head. That's what they say. It is wajib to do that. You have to do that. You have to wipe 1/4 of your head or a hand, like the area of a hand of your head. Right? Slightly different definitions they have. So one hadith understood in 3 different ways. Totally different ways. Right? But we're all following the Quran and Sunnah. Okay, so the Shafis, we say, yes, by default, it's all of it, but the Prophet didn't do all of it, so therefore, any small amount. So any small amount of the scalp / hair on the head, if you wash it, wipe it, get some moisture onto it, that's fine. Drop water through your hijab, drop water through your hat, that's enough. And when we say head, we don't mean the nape of your neck, right? We're talking about the area above your ears and above your, the normal hairline, right? That's what we're talking about. And when we say the hair of the head, we mean the hair of the head that naturally falls within their limits. So a woman, for example, she gets her ponytail and just wipes the end of it and says, "Khalas, it's okay. I've wiped a portion of my head." That is not sufficient, right? You have to wipe part of the hair that naturally falls within the limits of the head or the scalp of the head. So if you manage to touch the scalp, you're done. It's fine. But if you manage to touch a hair that naturally falls within the limits of the head, that's what's needed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great. Um, okay. And then E, to wash the feet up to and including the ankles. Okay. Um, So again, washing. So when we say, so now we say washing, and washing the hands, etc. Again, a woman, for example, she has nail polish on. That's a barrier. You can do that at home where no men will go see it, apart from your husband or your family, etc. You can do that, but you need to make wudu at some point, right? So, you know, that's something different, right? And also this applies to little kids, right? So little kids who have to pray, same thing applies to them. So there was a wedding, and the little girls who were 7 and 8, they put nail polish on. Okay, that's fine, but you have to show them how to do it. You do it after you pray Isha, and then when you're gonna pray Fajr, you got to take it off. Oh man, I don't want to do it then. Okay, then don't do it then, right? Don't do it because right. Same thing with those little fake tattoos that kids have. So there's an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old who has to pray, right? He has a fake tattoo on his forearm, and now he can't make wudu. You got to take it off. Right? He's going, oh man, I don't want to take it off. I gotta. It's like, well, you got to make wudu, right? So I'll just pray without wudu. You can't pray without wudu. Can't do that, right? You're too old to pray without wudu. You can't do that. Little kids pray without wudu because they're not praying, right? But kids, when they're actually praying, they got to pray with, you know, you got to pray with wudu. You can't just not pray with wudu. Okay. The other issue then was with your hands. You have been working. You have been working in the fields. Okay, you've been working in the fields or you're working in your back garden, working in your on your car, and you have caked dirt underneath your nails. So the Shafis, what do we say?
Excused.
Is it excused? Why would you say excused and why would you say it's not excused?
If I'm not mistaken, Imam Ghazali said it is not excused, and the dominant opinion is it's
That is
excused.
correct. So Imam Ghazali, so you have to understand Imam Ghazali and Ibn Taymiyyah, both of them had um this thing about masalih, about trying to make things focusing on the maslahah, the benefit of the Sharia and how the Sharia serves us and helps makes life easier for us. And in that, they focusing on ease. So Imam Ghazali, as a faqih, obviously he's a certain stage of the Shafi school. He can't change the whole Shafi school, of course. But you see in the Ihya al-Ulumuddin, he'll say certain things. He'll be like, "Come on, guys, let's be a bit chill on this. Like that's a bit difficult. That's a little bit difficult." And now, why do they do that? Because why did he change? He changed because number one, it's kind of reflecting the spirit of the Sharia more, and number two, his nafs disappeared. So many scholars, many judges or muftis, when they have a big nafs, they're a pain in the neck, right? And they make life easy for themselves but hard for other people. But that's not good, is it? Right? That's not Islamic. I mean, it's very dangerous. Obviously, if your ego comes in the way of your fatwa, then it's obviously a huge problem, right? But people are like that in reality, right? Young people are like that. They're very kind of like annoying, right? They don't see the whole picture. That's not really going to work, right? Um, and so anyway, Imam Ghazali in the Ihya al-Ulumuddin, he said, yeah, I mean, come on, guys. You're working in the field, you got all this stuff on your nails. You expected to sit there for 5, 10 minutes every single time, make wudu to get it out. That's pretty hard. It should be overlooked. The Shafis, they say no, it's not that difficult, right? And so at this point, at this juncture, we'll mention. I hope people are taking, Azhar, mashallah, remember these things. but taking notes because I'm not just talking, I'm saying things that are important. So when we say that something's overlooked, we're changing the Sharia, right? Like when we say you don't have to wash the face, we are changing the Sharia. When you say, oh, you don't have to have intention throughout the whole prayer, with the whole wudu, even though the hadith says actions are only by intentions and the whole thing is an action, we've changed things, right? The default is this, but we're like, oh, that's not the case because of this, right? We basically played God. That's what we did, right? We made a judgment. We made a call for judgment. There's a call for judgment, and we played God. That's what we did. So it's obviously a very dangerous thing to do. So when we are playing God, there are 4 levels of difficulty that we can think about, right? Sham is saying, listen, this I know this is haram, but can I do it? And I'm like, why would you want to do it? Because of this. I look at this excuse that Sham is presenting to me, and it's going to fit under one of 4 categories. Okay? Category number 1, negligible. Right? Can I please not make wudu because it makes my face feel cold? Or I don't like the tickle of like drying water on my face. And I'm like, bro, just do it. Can I please not pray because it takes the time away from my work? That's the whole point. Can I please not pay zakat because it costs me money? That's the whole point. Can I please not go on zakat on Hajj, even though I have the money for Hajj, because I want to spend that money on something else? That's the whole point. The whole point is that you spend the money on Hajj. If you have it, spend it. If you don't have it, you don't have to go. So he's asking me for a fatwa, and I don't have a fatwa for him. He's asking me to change halal to haram or haram, wajib to not wajib, based on the fact of some kind of difficulty. And I'm like, yeah, it's negligible. Like these are negligible things, or they're not negligible, but that's the whole point of the Sharia. There's supposed to be difficulty there. When I fast, I get hungry. It's like, really? When I fast, I feel thirsty. It's like, really? Of course, we all feel thirsty when you fast. Of course, right? That's normal. So that's not an excuse, is it? Or, why do I have to go in jihad? I might die. It's like, that's the whole point. Like, you might die. Like, what are you talking about? So there's duress. That's so negligible, meaning, right? Or a part and parcel of that is sort of in itself. So, for example, the fact that you might die through jihad is not negligible, is it? But it's sort of in itself. You're supposed to die fighting for what is right. So there's negligible, and then the other side is what? Not negligible, right? Significant. It is duress, meaning I would die if I did what you're asking me to do, right? I would lose a limb. I would go blind if I did what you're asking me to do. I would lose my money. I would lose all my money if I did what you're asking me to do. I would be at risk of everybody taking anything I had, right? I would. What else would happen to? I'd go insane if you did what you're asking me to do. I would lose my religion if you did what I'm asking to do, or I would be sexually abused, or some of my family would be sexually abused if that happened, right? So these are all. This is duress. This is not a joke. This is like I can't do what you're asking me to do because it's for very serious reasons. So we have on one side negligible, on the other side we have very serious duress, darura, right? Then we have a stage that's beneath darura, right? So we mentioned here, would you go insane if you ask people to focus for the whole wudu? No, but it's quite difficult on a regular basis, right? Would you go insane or would you die if you ask people to wash inside their beard? Say no, but it's quite difficult on a regular basis, right? Uh, so here you're saying, do I, as a mechanic, do I have to remove all the grease and grime under my nails every single time I make wudu? And so so the answer is it's not negligible. I don't think, and it's also not duress. So the question is it the stage before duress? So stage before duress is normal, recurrent, widespread difficulty, right? So we mentioned washing the face, washing the beard, focusing throughout the whole wudu. Avoiding filth in a agrarian lifestyle. So you work on a field, There's cow muck everywhere, sheep everywhere, this, that. And it's like, this is very hard to avoid. Right? It's quite difficult. So you have a bit of this stuff all, it's all over the place. It's all over the road. The road is full. And the road is full of cow muck and sheep muck. Is like, and now you walk on the road and it gets a bit onto your clothes. Like, of course it's just going to happen. How else are you supposed to avoid that? Right? Um, so things like that, where things that it would be very difficult to ask people to avoid on a regular basis, right? Um, uh, uh, I don't got another discussion there. Okay, so you have duress, then you have very difficult. On the other side of it, you have negligible, and then you have something that's 50-50, right? Some scholars go one way, some scholars go the other way, right? So we mentioned, for example, the issue about the beard. The Malikis, they say, no, you have to wash inside your beard. So they're saying, come on, bro, man up. It's not that difficult. We're saying, no, it's difficult, right? The Hanbalis, no, it's hard to clean under your nails. It should be overlooked. We say, no, man up. You can do it. So these are issues that are going to be somewhere in between, right? Somewhere in between. So you can't come along and say it's wrong, but you can come along and say, yeah, you can go one way or the other. And again, that's why a benefit of a madhab, because I can see that in principle you could go either way. Let's see where the votes go. Let's let the AI go for 1,000 years. Let's let a madhab go for 1,000 years and see where the votes go. And then the votes go, no, that's the Shafi'i school. Okay. So it's a call for judgment. You could see it going either way. I respect that. That's fine. That's okay. Imam Ghazali said yes. Majority said no. Okay, forget about it then. Okay, let's just move on. So the Shafis, that's their conclusion, right? And you could spend a long time trying to work that out. And does it go A or B and go back and forward and sometimes be more strict, sometimes be more lenient, etc. Right? Same thing like a woman's sleeve, right? What if you could see up a woman's sleeve? Like, is that considered difficult to have that her sleeve has to be tight, so tight that you couldn't see up her sleeve? Or is that considered overlooked? Right? They go back and forward. Because it is quite difficult to have particularly in the past, right? Have perfectly made clothes that you can't see up her sleeve at all, even if you put it hand sideways. The Hanafis, for example, they say that it's hard to keep a hijab exactly on your chin bone, right? So for the Shafis, we say when you're walking down the street, your hijab has to be on your chin bone. You cannot expose anything beyond your chin bone because that's exposing beyond the face. You're now exposing more than your face. You can't do that. That's haram. The Hanafis say, yeah, but it's difficult to keep the hijab exactly there. So the little place beneath the chin bone is okay because it's difficult. We say, yeah, it's difficult, but that's important. You can do difficult things. It's okay. And they say it's difficult. It's too difficult, right? So that call, is it too difficult, not too difficult? It's a call for judgment. We respect both sides of the argument, and but it's not a fundamental difference. It's a particular difference, like it's not a universal difference. It's on a difference of a small issue. Okay, so can we see we have lots of principles and concepts in our head so far in fiqh? We did not just come along and say Quran and Sunnah. Obviously, we're all following Quran and Sunnah, but you now have a whole bunch of systems in your head that are quite complex and quite deep, and we're just talking about wudu. Is everybody following me?
Yes.
The role of language, the role of what else? Authenticity, the role of this, the role of that. All of these things. This is what we're trying to pass on, inshallah. Okay, let's find a good place to stop because we have to go to the next class. Aha. I have two questions for you. If I have to make wudu, does it make turning on the faucet obligatory? That's a question you have to answer now. If I have to make wudu, does it make turning on the faucet, turning on the tap obligatory? That's A.
No.
B, based on that answer, is it possible to wash the whole of the face, everything within the limits of the face, without washing a tiny bit more? Is it possible to wash all of the arm up to the elbows without washing the tiny bit beyond? Is it possible, for example, the question is, do I have to actually wash beyond the limit or not? Because it says washing the face, it doesn't say wash the face and a bit. it doesn't say, it says wash your arms up to the elbow. Presumably you don't have to go past the elbow, otherwise why would it say up to the elbow, right? And similarly it says wash the feet up to the ankles. Presumably you don't have to go beyond the ankles, I presume, right? So how do we marry those two things? So the first question is, if you're obliged to make wudu, are you obliged to make to turn on the faucet? What's the big idea there? And then the second is applying that to the issues of going beyond the limit of the face, beyond the limit of the arms, beyond the limit of the feet. Inshallah, we'll stop there. We can discuss this on the group or next week, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi